Let's talk about some of the smallest words in the English language. Personal pronouns. I mean, they're tiny, right? But they are so powerful. They're not just about making our sentences flow, they're absolutely fundamental to communicating clearly and, maybe most importantly, with respect. We use them all the time, but man, they can cause a lot of confusion.
Does this look familiar? I think we've all been there, staring at a sentence, wondering if it should be my friend and I or my friend and me, or that classic one, who is at the door versus whom is at the door. These little grammatical tripwires are everywhere. But here's the good news. The rules behind them are actually way simpler than you think once you see them broken down, and that's exactly what we're going to do today.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the big picture, why this is about so much more than just grammar. Then we'll dive into the basics, really nailing the difference between subject and object pronouns. After that, I'll show you some super simple tricks to avoid those common mistakes. We'll explore how our language is growing and changing. And finally, we'll pull it all together so you can walk away using pronouns with total confidence. Ready? Let's do it. Okay, first things first. Let's be real, this is about way more than just passing an English test. Understanding and using pronouns correctly has a huge real-world impact that goes way beyond just getting a sentence right. This quote from inclusion trainer Kelsey Pacha really just hits the nail on the head. It connects grammar directly to a person's well-being. Think about it. Using someone's correct pronouns is just like getting their name right. It's a basic, fundamental sign of respect. It's a small act that says, I see you, and I acknowledge who you are. And as the research shows, that simple affirmation has tangible, positive effects on mental health. It's a tiny little word with a massive impact. All right, let's get our foundation built. To really understand why we make certain mistakes, we first have to get crystal clear on what pronouns are and how they're organized. Time for a quick back to basics. At its heart, a personal pronoun is just a shortcut. I mean, imagine trying to tell a story about your friend Sarah without them. You'd have to say, Sarah went to the store, and then Sarah bought some milk, and then Sarah came home. It sounds super repetitive and clunky, right? Instead, we just use she and her. Pronouns are the awesome little words that make our language flow smoothly. Okay, now, don't let this chart scare you. I know it looks a bit technical, but it's basically the secret decoder ring for all of this. In English, pronouns have what we call cases, and that's just a fancy word for the job the pronoun is doing in the sentence. You've got nominative, objective, and possessive. We're going to focus mostly on those first two, because the battle between them is where almost all the confusion comes from. First up, the nominative case. The easiest way to think of this is just the subject. These are your main characters, your doers, the ones who are actually performing the action in the sentence. So in a sentence like, she went to the movies, who's doing the going? She is. Boom. She's the subject. Simple as that. And now for the flip side of that coin, the objective case. If the subject pronouns are the actors, these pronouns are the ones the action is being done to. They are on the receiving end. In the sentence, ask him, is he doing any asking? Nope. He's receiving the action of being asked. He is the object. Okay, so we've met our two main players, the subjects who do the action and the objects who receive it. Now let's put them in the ring together, because this is where the real drama and most of the confusion actually happens. This slide lays it all out so perfectly. Look at the left side. You've got your subject pronouns. I make, she went, they are. They're all busy doing something. Now glance over to the right. The object pronouns are just chillin', receiving the action. Cookies are given to me. We're told to ask him or her. He told them. See that clear division? Actors on the left, receivers on the right. That is the whole game right there. Ah, the big one. Who versus whom? It sounds so complicated and maybe even a little old-fashioned, but I promise you there is an amazing trick for this that makes it incredibly easy. All you have to do is answer the question you're asking. So for who or whom is at the door, a simple answer would be he is at the door. Since he is a subject pronoun, you use who. Let's try another. Who or whom did you invite? The answer could be I invited him. Since him is an object pronoun, you use whom. It is a foolproof method that works every single time. All right, enough with the theory, let's get practical. We're going to look at some of the most common pronoun mistakes you hear every single day and give you some dead simple mental shortcuts to get them right for good. Okay, listen to this sentence. They sold watches to Mike and I. I guarantee you hear this one all the time. You might have even said it yourself. It kind of sounds correct, doesn't it? maybe even a little bit formal. But grammatically, it's got a problem. And it's all because there are two people involved.
So how do we figure this out without pulling our hair out? Well, luckily, there's a ridiculously simple test.
This is my absolute favorite grammar trick. Just mentally remove the other person from the sentence. You would never, ever say, they sold watches to I, right? It just sounds completely wrong to your ear. You'd automatically say, they sold watches to me, and there's your answer. The grammar doesn't magically change just because Mike is standing there. So the correct sentence is, they sold watches to Mike and me. This works perfectly for subjects too. You wouldn't say me went to the store, so you can't say Mike and me went to the store. It has to be Mike and I. It's a game changer. And then there's myself. Myself. So many people use this word because they think it sounds more formal or professional, like in, please send the report to Jane and myself. But that's actually not correct. Myself is what's called a reflexive pronoun, which is just a technical way of saying it has to reflect back on the subject I. It's for adding emphasis, like I'll do it myself, or when you're the object of your own action, like I see myself in the mirror. The golden rule on this slide is all you need to remember. If the word I isn't already in that sentence as the subject, you cannot use myself, period. So we've talked a lot about the rules, but here's the thing. Grammar isn't some dusty old rule book that's set in stone. Language is alive. It breathes, it changes, and it's constantly adapting to reflect who we are as a society. A lot of people think that using they to refer to one person is some brand new modern thing. But check out this timeline. It's been a normal part of the English language for over 600 years. We're talking Shakespeare, Chaucer, the literary heavyweights used it. It only became controversial when a few grammarians in the 18th century just kind of decided they didn't like it. So what we're seeing today isn't some radical change. It's the language coming back to its flexible, common sense roots. And now, all the major style guides and dictionaries are on board. Now, beyond the singular they, you might also encounter neopronouns. That neo prefix just means new. These are pronouns that have been created to give people more options for gender-neutral language, especially for those who feel that they just isn't the right fit for them. Now, I know they might look unfamiliar if you haven't seen them before, but if you look at the chart, you'll see they follow the exact same grammatical patterns we've been talking about, with distinct forms for subject, object, possessive, and so on. Okay, let's bring all this home. How do we take all this grammatical knowledge and actually apply it in our daily conversations in a way that's not only correct, but also kind, considerate, and respectful? Honestly, the best approach is just to be open and direct. A great way to normalize the conversation is to share your own pronouns when you introduce yourself, maybe in your email signature or when you meet someone new. If you're not sure what someone's pronouns are, it is 100% okay to ask politely. And a great little tip here is to avoid the word preferred. For many people, their pronouns aren't a preference, like choosing a favorite color, they're just a fact of who they are. And what if you slip up? Look, it's gonna happen, we're all human. The key is not to make a big deal about it. Just a quick, sincere, oh, sorry, she, and then you correct yourself and move on with the conversation. That's it. And this really gets us to the most important rule of all, the one that overrides any grammar textbook. At the end of the day, the ultimate guide here isn't about memorizing charts, it's about respect. Using the pronouns that someone uses for themselves is always the right thing to do. That's because treating someone with respect is never, ever a grammatical mistake. When you really think about it, pronouns are more than just these little words we use. They're a mirror, reflecting who we are as individuals and as a society that's constantly growing and evolving. They change because we change. And that just leaves us with one final, thought-provoking question. What will they reflect next? Thanks so much for joining this explainer.
You are doing great. Don't stop. Subscribe and watch the next video.